Greetings, globeheads and flurfers. Tonight I want to talk about an argument that flat earthers make that unwittingly proves the globe. They point to something that we observe, claiming that it debunks the globe when it actually does the opposite. I'm talking about rocket launchers. I don't know how many times I've seen various flat earthers argue that rocket launches are fake. And the reason why they're fake is because if you watch them, you will notice that the rocket doesn't go straight up. They don't. A rocket takes off, usually in America, from Cape Canaveral, Florida, where it then arcs out over the ocean and makes a turn and starts traveling east. Doesn't go straight up. Flat earthers will argue that, see, this proves the rockets aren't really going up into space. They're just going out and they're shooting them out into the ocean somewhere and blah, 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 because I can see it arc over. Here's the problem with that argument. Your whole argument's based on your flat earth idea. Well, it didn't go up straight up to try to knock a hole in the dome, so therefore, do you understand what an orbit is? Well, no. If you're a flat earther, you don't understand pretty much anything. So let me break it down for you. When something is in orbit, it is circling around whatever it is orbiting. If you're in an orbit of the Earth, you are circling the Earth. This happens because this is how an orbit works. Something that is in orbit is basically free falling. A little thing we like to call gravity, and you guys like to call magic. But an object in orbit is not simply free falling, it's also moving sideways. And it's moving sideways at a fast enough speed that basically as it falls towards the Earth, it misses. And it continues to fall. And let me put it to you like this. We can calculate, based on how gravity works, we can calculate the speed at which an object will fall, right? And it has a lot of factors having to do with how far it is from the Earth and this and that and the other thing. So if you put it at a high enough speed, parallel to the surface of the Earth, that as it falls, it always is the same distance from the globe, from the Earth. It will continue in a circular traffic pattern around the Earth. Now, if this is real, when you observe this, you're going to observe a rocket launch that goes up and starts to turn to follow the curve of the Earth. That's exactly what you would expect to see. If you were to launch a rocket straight up, at no point would it have that momentum where it's traveling parallel to the surface of the Earth. Do you not get that? Do you expect that on a globe a rocket would launch straight up and then hit some distance and make a 90-degree right turn? I mean, how do you assume that this has to go straight up to go to space? Where would this idea even come from? The way that it launches, the way that it curves out over the sea, proves the globe. So thanks for pointing that out. Now, there's a reason in the United States why we use Cape Canaveral, Florida. There is a law in physics called the law of conservation of energy, conservation of motion. We say if objects are in motion, they tend to stay at motion. If objects are at rest, they tend to stay at rest. Okay, so because the Earth is spinning, as flat earthers you like to point out over and over again, it's about 1,000 miles an hour at the equator. And the Closer you get to the equator, the faster it's going. The further you get toward, closer toward the poles, the slower that movement would be. So when you launch a rocket and you want it to be going very fast, parallel to the surface of the Earth, it helps to have that speed that it's already going on the surface of the Earth. So the further south you go, the faster it's moving sideways. And then if you launch it in that same direction, you're adding the rocket speed to the speed it already has while it's on the surface of the Earth. And so it works to your advantage. We use the East Coast because if you launch out over the water, if something goes wrong and your rocket blows up, comes crashing down, it doesn't come down on top of a city or whatever. So the Florida coast is just the best place in the U.S. You're launching out over the water and you're pretty far south. And that's why. So every time y'all point out that rockets don't go straight up, you are actually providing evidence that we're putting them into orbit. And I just hope you understand that. Have a good evening.